Yeah, I think this is not the beginning of it, but this is basically where it's glaringly obvious that the finishes were overbooked. The matches were severely overbooked because there was a point where they caught, and I'm not sure exactly what it was because it was a false finish. See, I try to remember, but it was where you teased dissension between Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes, who are tag champs, right? So or six-man tag champ, ROH. See, this is where we're going to get in this. The ROH tag champs, and then we got the AEW tag champs, then we got the six-man tag champs, and all this other stuff going on. But there was a point in the match where Sammy had hit Dustin by mistake and super kicked him, and then Dustin had won for a pin, and Sammy was watching. That should have been the pin for Dustin winning, and then a little bit of a hint. But we got another minimum of 2 to 3 minutes after that. You know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. There was lots of opportunities for the strongest, highest point of the match with the finish to further a story for TV, and they went so far beyond that, and the people kind of deflated, and then the finish happened. So I think that Dustin would have got a lot bigger of a reaction and everything, and a lot bigger of, oh, what's this between him and Sammy, if they had ended it then instead of extending that out and overbooking the finish.
That being said, though, I'm always pleased for Dustin Rhodes to be highlighted. He's 50, God, he must be in his late 50s now. And you've wrestled him numerous times. I think just this past week you said he was your favourite opponent on Stevie Night Heat, who, just got it, threw himself into the whole role and enjoyed everything about it. It was just a pleasure to work with. I don't know if you worked Dustin much later or you only worked him around the Ruthless Aggression era, but how would you rate his work then? He was already a veteran then of, 17, 18 years compared to now in his late 50s in AEW working with all these guys half his age.
I would probably say just for the fact of Dustin's age, if you figure that in, and the way he can move, and he's always improving and always doing stuff. And he's at a point now where I'd have to say, man, in a way, he's probably the best worker in the entire business. To still be in shape, to still be doing what he's doing, to stay over, to reinvent himself after one of the strongest characters probably in wrestling history, Goldust, which could stereotype you and typecast you very, very easily. Dustin is just, and maybe a little bit of bias on my part when I watch him, I'm just like, nobody moves with the crispness, the coordination, the fluidity, while making this stuff look more real than anybody in that four-way, or dare I say it, on most people on the show. Dustin has psychology. Dustin also is very physical. Dustin doesn't shy away from bumping for the younger guys and doing things. He's right up. He's better than he's ever been. Now, could he work a full schedule? My assumption is no, because he's probably trying to recover from this. And my critique of the finish is for the best for Dustin. You know what I mean? I wanted the best for him because I was hoping he would go over and be highlighted in this match, and I'm hoping for a long title run. But they did him a disservice because it's a very big moment. And what we got was so many moments on this pay-per-view that a lot of them can be forgettable. Dustin's moment should stand out really as something, like you talked about, the death of the Death Riders on this pay-per-view. That should have been the theme of the show in a way, to kind of get rid of this reign of terror, which people don't seem to want.
That Pac didn't turn up for. Why was Pac not there? Is he injured again, or has he got visa issues again? It's just Gabe Kidd was there instead.
There was so much to think about. I assumed he was on the show.
Nope.
But you're right. I see what I mean? This is where a 6-hour pay-per-view can really start to muddy all the waters of all the business you want to do. But don't get me wrong. Get him back to Dustin. I always want the best for Dustin. As you can tell, I have such a love and affection for him as a worker and as a person. I want him to stand out as much as possible. And I just feel like that was something that was really, really overbooked to a negative sense for the moment that you wanted with Dustin Rhodes.
He has had 17 matches in AEW or Ring of Honor this year. But the thing is, for the most part, they're on Ring of Honor. And no one watches Ring of Honor practically because there's only 20,000 sign-ups or whatever there is to Ring of Honor or Honor Club. which I find such a shame because you've got a living, breathing legend here, and dare I say, and you can tell me otherwise, I'd say Dustin's more of a legend than Jeff Jarrett, who's the same age roughly in his last year or so roughly, and they're treating Dustin as someone on the B show with Sammy Guevara, and they're treating Jeff Jarrett to holding a microphone on the pre-show. It's like, why are you using these two dudes in just as... well, I mean, at least with Dustin, he's got a decent title run, a singles title run now as well, but I mean, they're not getting the most out of him.
Well, dare I say it, AEW never gets the most out of the talent they have, especially when they come from a WWE or other places or people that have a lot of experience. I will say this, they're acting like Dustin's not on a pitch count, that he doesn't have a limited amount of time. They're acting like he's got another 10, 20 years left in him. Yeah, those 17 matches all should have been on AEW talking about how he wants to win the TNT title by the end of the year, maybe, or by All In, or what. You can easily make this into a storyline. And with Jeff, yeah, this is my retirement year and this is what I'm doing. Well, where's the sense of urgency from creative to get Jeff Jarrett on something where he's working these are two guys that the young talent, they could put in storylines and really teach these kids how to carry a storyline and angle and how to properly book a match during those storylines and angles, especially with a climax of a title win. And this is where Dustin, I think, is really cooperative sometimes to a fault. He wants those other three guys to have input. Because I guarantee you, Dustin would have not overbooked that finish. But the guys all wanted to get something to shine during that. And of course, Dustin's going to say, yeah, of course, I'm not wrestling forever, so I want to make sure you guys get featured in a way. But it was to a slight detriment. And I might be splitting hairs, but I feel like these finishes all had the highest point, then something happened and they started to do this. And it became more and more apparent and more overbooked as the show went on.
And then with Samoa Joe, he had the one super clean finish at this point with the Muscle Buster. And then they completely overshadowed that with the Death Riders doing their thing after the thing.
Oh, when Joe hooked Wheeler Yuta for that Muscle Buster, everybody got on their feet, which is great, which is amazing. And it should have been left with that.
Absolutely. Jeff Jarrett hasn't wrestled since January. I've got one more thing about Dustin. Because Dustin Rhodes, Dustin Runnels, Goldust, whatever you want to call him, when was his peak? Because you say, well, his peak is now if you factor in his age, but then you had the original Goldust run, and there's other... I mean, some of the natural Dustin Rhodes stuff was really good as well in WCW. I mean, there's obviously other stuff like, like Seven and Black Rain and stuff that can be pushed to the wayside. But when do you think Goldust, Dustin Runnels was at his peak as a worker?
I think it just goes like this. In a great sense, laterally, he's been moving. Now, creatively, he dips because people give him something that doesn't really speak to people, or he dips down, he goes on that roller coaster ride. Dustin's always been over to the point that he can control to get himself over. If creative doesn't give him more to go further, that's on creative. I can't say, man, I mean, you can talk about the initial Goldust run where he worked Razor Ramon and it was very controversial. You could talk about the Goldust Booker T run and how entertaining that was. You can talk about Dustin versus Cody in AEW. It was amazing. Way back. That's how long this guy's been working. And then what was the other one that he did? Good Lord. I mean, he's done a lot of good work with Sammy Guevara, but it's been on ROH, so nobody's seen it. That's harder. It's an easier question. I can't even answer that, dude. I mean, the toughest question is say, when has Dustin not shined? And I dare say he's always shined when he's able to really perform.
I was thinking Goldberg's around the same age, and we'll talk about the Goldberg match when we get to Saturday night's main event, but, he's old, he's broken down, he's self-admitting, that kind of thing. They've got the most out of Goldberg, WWE, and you can at least say that for them as compared to Dustin, who is the same age, working fantastically still, and is making as much of an impact as he could be doing, I guess.
Let me ask you this question, and everybody out there, please comment below. Why hasn't WWE tried to get Goldust back? Can you imagine Goldust
He
in
re-signed with
2020?
AEW recently, is what the answer
Well, I know
is.
that. I know that, but why would he? Unless it's just an obscene amount of money and the schedule's much more lax. But there I say, it's 17 matches, mostly on Ring of Honor. That's a disservice to, like you said, a living legend that you assume because he's in his 50s and working better than he did 10 years ago, that train's not going to run off the tracks eventually.